sporting events such as the Summer and Winter Olympics and the World Cup are multinational and large-scale productions. They are held every 4 years, and different countries bid to host the event. The International Olympics Committee states that the host city is responsible for establishing services for all aspects of the Games, such as sports planning, finance, accommodation, media services, and etc. Let's face it, big sports are big business. Host countries benefit from revenue generated by tourism, broadcasting fees, sales of merchandise, and construction. Besides money, the host country claims bragging rights, gaining prestige when they showcase their economic prowess by hosting the biggest party of the year. Many countries have hosted these games in the past. Here's a little perspective on who coughed out the big bucks as hosts. Oh, and by the way, the Winter Olympics in Sochi cost $51 billion, which is equivalent to 20 trips to Mars. While hosting the Olympics is no easy task, media attention focuses on the opening ceremony, athletes, and the medal tally. Yet there's a hidden story associated with global sporting events, one that begins before everyone has arrived. Impacts remain long after the party has ended, and the Sochi Games were no different. To make the Olympic dream a reality, migrant workers are truly the backbone. For the Winter Olympics in Sochi, 95,000 men came down from various countries to work. Most came at their own travel expense. The construction boom at Sochi was seen as a way to escape poverty and unemployment in their own country. For the Winter Olympics in Sochi, the organizing committee, otherwise known as the migrant workers, constructed more than a dozen venues in separate coastal and mountain complexes with over 367 kilometers of roads, 200 kilometers of railway, and 170 kilometers of gas pipelines. This construction project sounds worthwhile, but in reality, it was likened to modern slavery. Migrant workers worked long hours. Construction shifts lasted at least 12 hours per day, they'd never had a day off, and they were housed in cramped and unsupporting living conditions. It was typical to share a 12-foot by 15-foot room with 7 men. In order to build the main stadium, workers worked 12-hour workdays 7 days a week with no overtime. Workers earned only 1 day off after working 2 weeks. To break it down, that's 168 hours to earn just 1 day off. At job sites, migrant workers were issued minimal personal protective equipment, so workplace injuries were rampant. They also developed chronic illnesses due to dust exposure and other toxic hazards at the construction sites. And since they did not receive health insurance, any sickness or injury sustained during construction had to be borne on their own expense. Depending on the extent of the injury, they might be laid off from their job. Many migrant workers had their immigration documents confiscated by contractors when they arrived and were denied written contracts. Without proper immigration documents, they were pressured to leave or they were deported with minimal or unpaid wages. Construction companies were liquidated soon after the work was completed, further making the contractors unaccountable and untraceable. Migrant worker abuse is not limited to Sochi, but also occurs at other events. Human rights group Amnesty International has reported rampant abuses among workers who are building facilities for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Amnesty International predicted that at the current mortality rate of 1 worker per day, at least 4,000 migrant workers in Qatar would be dead due to workplace injuries before a single ball is kicked. There are many questions that arise from this situation, which serve as a wake-up call for the future of global sporting events. Are all these impacts on human and environmental health worth the price of hosting a one-time event? Should events be hosted at one designated site? Is there anything that can be done to lessen adverse impacts on human and environmental health? And lastly, whose responsibility is it to monitor abuses on migrant workers? For future sporting events, all organizations involved must be held accountable for the protections of migrant worker rights.